Professor Taylor, you've recently written an op-ed with John Claude Trichet, among others, basically saying we're at a critical junction. There's no going back to multilateralism. I look at Brexit. Maybe there's some countries and economies that are running away from the notion of a collective on a global scale because politics and trade get awfully hard to separate. Your thoughts?
Well, I think what we need to do is find out in this environment the best way to move ahead with trade, with capital markets. And I think what we've been learning is that sometimes what the country does to make its own circumstances better is better globally. And so we need to look for those kinds of things. And sometimes it's going to be bilaterally, sometimes it's going to be multilaterally, sometimes it's going to be just what the best policy is for the country.
You know, when I look at the markets, Professor, I see that interest rates have resurfaced to the upside after a couple of weeks of going sideways. Whether you look at 2s, 5s, 7s, 10s, 30s, they're all close to cycle highs. In the case of the 10-year, 7 years. Then I look at China and its stock market and its currency getting close to the weakest level since 17, if not 2008. I know that this isn't supposedly good for global trade, but certainly there are winners and losers here. Will that make a difference?
No, absolutely. I think you are seeing a development in the U.S. which is quite positive. You got probably going to have good growth numbers in the third quarter when it comes out soon. Yeah, the second quarter was quite good. You've seen a change in policy for the better, I think, on the tax side, on regulatory side. I think you even mentioned the monetary side. So China's struggling at this point. It needs to know what to do. And I think to some extent the struggles have to do with keeping track on their reform, which they had for many years and have gotten off recently.
You know, Professor, everybody that looks at interest rates wants to talk about two topics. One is supply and deficits. The other is some of the banter between the Fed, although it really isn't an online type banter, meaning the president tweets about the central bank and what they're doing. What are your thoughts on that dynamic? And you were on the short list. If you were in the shoes of Jay Powell and company, would you take it as hyperbole? There doesn't seem to be any real reaching across with kind of concrete requests by the president or his administration.
So I just think there's some reaching across. I think the Fed's on the right track. They've communicated about it. It's gradual. It's normalization. It's the balance sheet. So people understand it, and I've been talking a lot to central bankers around the world. I think they're beginning to understand it. It's a global phenomenon. I think you're seeing that in the long rate. After all, the yield curve was steepened a little bit recently as a result of that, and that's something people should take into account. I think the so-called banter, I mean, the president also said normalization is the right thing to do, and I think it's a question of pace and timing. So I think the Fed has clarified as much as possible what it can do. Of course, there's uncertainty, but I think it's on the right track.
You know, Professor Taylor, I asked this to all my guests, so you can give me your version or your answer. Is divergence something that has any significant runway in front of us? Could the U.S. continue to out-trot all the other economies, or is the weakest link scenario going to bring our economy back down a bit? Your final thoughts.
I think that what we're doing is correct in the U.S. on the policies. It's a change, and the results are good. I would like to see other countries move in the same direction. There's a lot of growth left in the world. A lot of things countries could be doing. In a way, the U.S. is showing more leadership now on the regulatory side and the tax side. I think that's positive, and it will be positive globally as well.
You know, real quickly, I do have one more question. A group of conservative economists, Laffer, Forbes, and more, have said that 0 for 0 on kind of tariffs. Quickly, is that something you back?
Absolutely. It's really what it's all about. Get our tariffs down, and been promoting that for many years. 0 for 0. We'll do 0. If you do 0, it'd be better for the world economy.